So we just got a brand new trailer for Monster Hunter Rise as part of the Summer Games Fest, and this trailer actually revealed quite a few different things, including 2 new monsters. Potentially one of them is the flagship of the game, the fact that there is going to be crossplay across PC, Xbox and PlayStation, as well as the existence of a playable demo and more small details and bits that could hint at some major things in the story. I'm very excited for this, so without any further ado, hello everyone, my name is Dark Hero and let's go over the analysis for the new trailer. So we start off the trailer by seeing these new monsters. They're actually a monster that we were able to spot in the previous trailer, as we are able to briefly spot in the sand pit this monster right here that is swimming along it. And right here we can also see it being attached to this Doshaguma, and we get to see a bit more detail of it right here. And here you can kind of make the shape of what this monster is, but now we have the confirmation that this monster is going to be the Balara, a desert-dwelling leviathan that uses their supple, serpentine bodies to create quicksand traps for unwary prey. And among the vastness of the sand, we see this other hunter that is currently being chased by all of these monsters. And a very small detail that you can make out right here is that, for one, it seems like their mouth is going to be split into 3. But here you can actually spot the small little eyes that they have. Once again, Capcom and the Monster Hunter team do pay a lot of attention to these small little details that help make the ecology feel real. And here our hunter uses a new type of slinger ammo, which is likely going to be essentially the same as the scatter nuts or crystal burst from Monster Hunter World, where after firing they're able to flinch the monster and knock it down. And here we see something similar to what we saw in the previous trailer, where the hunter, together with this NPC, are trying to shake off the herd and separate the alpha from the herd so that they're able to hunt them. Although in this specific case, maybe they're just trying to help the NPC as a part of a story quest or something like that. And here in the distance you can actually make out 2 small monsters, which are very similar to the Cortos or the Banhabras that we have been able to see in the previous games. They're a very typical type of monster that we often see in these games, so they're not very important. And here we get to see one of the Balaharas lunge at one of the hunters, and we also get to see the Balara using a spit attack, which is likely going to inflate you with paralysis, defense down, water blight, that type of stuff. And just look at the vastness of this space as we traverse this area that is filled with these Balara. Again, we see the spit attack multiple times. And as you can see, our hunter deploys the heavy bowgun and is able to fire them at the monsters while being mounted. And here that is the obvious sand trap that we are going to inevitably end up falling into. Not quite sure if this is going to be mandatory for the story, it's going to trigger, or if it is going to trigger naturally, although because we are accompanied by that NPC and we do have this cutscene, I do believe that it is going to be a story thing. And here, as our hunter awakens inside the cave, we see that a Balara has followed us, likely to be the alpha, and we get to fight him one-on-one. And this other hunter is going to leave, so I'm actually not sure if this is an actual hunter or more so a character similar to maybe the Seeker from Monster Hunter World. Although in the case of the Seeker they did have an insect glaive, and this person right here is only wielding a staff or a spear of some kind. I don't spot a single insect near him, so this is not going to be an insect glaive. So there is a very minor chance that this could potentially be a new weapon, but let's be real. Capcom would never reveal the existence of a 15th weapon like this. They would make a big deal out of it, and this is just essentially a walking stick that also has a sharp tip at the end to maybe cut some objects or defend themselves. And here we get to see some more interactions of the main character, our hunter, with this NPC. And of course we're going to have dialogue in this game, something that we saw in the previous trailer. And here we get to see this really good close-up of the Balara. Look at that, the insane amount of detail on this monster, the crazy amount of eyes that we are able to spot, and the detailed textures. It looks pretty fantastic. And of course our hunter takes out the heavy bowgun and prepares to fight against him, but as you can see, as the Balara roars, the hunter is actually able to block that roar, which means that this portion of the heavy bowgun right here is the shield that allows you to block roars and block incoming attacks. And I would assume that this glowing part of the Balara indicates that this would maybe be a weak spot. And here we get to see a really cool thing where the Balara goes up this rock formation and is able to fire spit at us. So it's going to be a really good idea for you to take your secondary weapon and make that a heavy bowgun, for example, like we have in this case, so that you will be able to fight against the Balara from a distance and any other monster that can make use of the terrain like this. And of course we get to see the Hunter block the incoming spit attack. And here we get to see the Hunter trying to escape the sand pit, and as a Balara shows up very quickly, the Hunter goes for a Superman dive and manages to evade the attack, but I wonder if the Hunter is going to end up falling into the sand pit as a result. Now here is a very important detail. During this trailer we are able to see that the Sacred is capable of moving around and maybe evading some attacks, but this right here is a perfect dodge of an incoming spit attack. Almost as if the Hunter pressed the dodge button to dodge out of the way of that attack. So we are likely going to be able to maneuver the Sacred, command it to dodge attacks and such, which is going to make our hunts a lot more engaging. Now that being said, I did hear, I believe it was from the website, that this dodge right here is being automated. The Sacred is going to do it by himself, and you don't have to input any button presses, which if that is going to ultimately be the case is something that I'm not a huge fan of. I would much prefer it if it were an active dodge that you have to press at the right time. But we will have to wait and see for the full release or maybe the playable demo. And now here we get to see yet another Balara lunging at the Hunter. And look at that animation of the Sacred drifting along the sand, it looks absolutely gorgeous. A crazy amount of detail was put into those animations to make everything feel much more believable. And now we get to see here a pretty cool turf war of what looks to be an alpha Doshiguma with all of these Balara. And here we get to see this huge set piece that has been a part of all of the marketing for Monster Hunter Wilds. And of course we have already seen that this area is going to be prone to sandstorms and all of these thunderstorms. But now we get to take a look at a second new monster, and this might actually be the new flagship for Monster Hunter Wilds. And look at how incredible this design is. It kinda looks like Shagaru Magala and Seregios, and look at that electric beam attack that it does. And if you take a look at it frame by frame, you can see it channeling the electricity along the horns, kind of like a railgun as it prepares to fire, and look at the firepower of that thing and how it glows. Look at the devastation. That is absolutely nuts. But another detail to pay close attention to is that whenever that beam is finished, you can actually see those horns start to split at the end. So they really are going to operate like a rail cannon that the monster has to prepare for him to be able to use. And then the horns go back into this different form that the monster can likely use to launch at you and pin the Hunter or another monster. Now I do want to go back here to this set piece because there is the theory that maybe in this game we're going to have several different areas that are all going to be affected differently by these environmental hazards. And these would all be affected in distinct conditions and would be caused by different monsters, which would be the apexes of those locations. And here on the top left you can kind of see what exactly the face of this monster is, with the horn split and everything. You get to briefly see it like this. Looks very cool, very menacing, and look at that beautiful color as well. The Shagaru Magala color scheme looks amazing on this guy right here, and we even get to see these, and here we get to see these electric horns or fins that the monster is creating, likely to better channel the electricity to make better use of it, and it looks pretty fantastic. Just look at the detail. And here we get to see a close-up of that same monster channeling up the electricity to fire off his railgun beam. Now one final note on this area, when taking a look at this rock formation, a theory that I can presently make is that this rock formation might have been blown up by one of those beams fired by that same monster. But given the monster's size, I don't think that this is made by that same monster, so maybe along the story we're going to encounter a scenario that is similar to Monster Hunter Rise, where we see all of these thunderstorms and everyone thinks that it is being caused by this monster that we saw, but then we get to actually hunt him and take him down, and turns out that those thunderstorms are going to persist, and hey, who would have guessed, the creature that is behind this huge gap in the rock formation, and all of the thunderstorms is none other than the elder dragon that you fight at the end of the story. I really do believe that there is a big possibility of that happening, seeing as that is the typical story that we have seen time and time again in Monster Hunter. And just look at that thing, the explosive power. Now here we get to see a really cool scenario where we have a cutscene, and this village or settlement is being attacked by the Doshaguma, it's being invaded, and we are able to defend it as the hunter that is present. Now more likely than not, this is just going to be a story scenario that we get to play once, and maybe never repeats itself. We never get this dynamic thing, where we are just hanging out in the village, and it is attacked by a monster all of a sudden. I really don't think that that is going to be a thing. Now an interesting thing is that all of the marketing for Monster Hunter Wilds, even including the Capcom website, mentions that there is supposedly no civilization in this new unexplored land. However, we can clearly see that there is a village in the Forbidden Lands, so the question is this a village that we establish as we get to that place, or is it something that we are going to find naturally as we explore the story? And personally, I am much more inclined to the latter. And here we get to see this beautiful shot of the greatsword being unveiled, and the hunter going up to defend the village. And look at this beautiful shot, the hunter leaps off against the Balara with the greatsword, and that is how the trailer concludes. Just absolute cinema. And hey, since this is a video analysis, I also want to freeze the frame and point out, look at this nuclear thigh reveal, respectfully, absolutely insane. Now that is how the trailer finished, but there are a few more details like I said at the beginning of the video that I want to go over. So we have this information here about crossplay that is going to be supported for Monster Hunter Wilds. This was something that was already very expected, seeing as Exoprimal and Street Fighter 6 both have crossplay, and the Monster Hunter team had already made various surveys talking about crossplay, and had tweeted that they had heard our feedback, and were looking very closely into implementing the things that we requested. So it was as close as confirmed as you could get, but it is good that we now have the confirmation that we are going to get crossplay. Now of course you're still going to need to have PlayStation Plus, or Game Pass Core or Ultimate for the PlayStation and Xbox respectively to be able to play the game online. Notably, you won't need to make a Capcom ID in order to play Monster Hunter Wilds with crossplay, which you actually need to do for Exoprimal, and I'm not sure if you need to do it too for Street Fighter. And for the details here, it states that players will be able to match with other players across all available platforms, and that crossplay can be enabled or disabled in the in-game options, because there are some console players that don't like the idea of playing with PC players due to the existence of mods and possibly cheats. So you will have the option to toggle that off if you want to. Additionally, you'll be able to add players from a different platform to your friends list, so there is going to be a friends list that is actually in the game. Now sadly, we are not getting cross-save or cross-progression, that is not going to be a thing, but getting crossplay is already pretty fantastic, especially as we are likely to get 16-player lobbies again in Monster Hunter Wilds, and just today I was doing a bunch of Fatalis hunts during my livestream and I was able to open up the lobby to play with more players. And now that we are going to have crossplay, I'll be able to play with even more people. Now it should be noted that it is likely that there is going to be some PlayStation exclusive content, most likely in the form of a weapon and an armor set like it was with the Horizon Zero Dawn collaboration. Now as for the playable demo, Ryozo himself was up on the stage and revealed that there was going to be a playable demo for Monster Hunter Wilds that is going to be available to play at Gamescom 2024. Now Gamescom takes place between the 21st and the 25th of August, so if you are planning on going to Gamescom, you'll be able to get your first-hand impressions with the game. But given the previous track record with Monster Hunter, if I am recalling this correctly, they did the exact same thing with Iceborne, where there was a playable demo at Gamescom, and I believe the following week, that same playable demo became available for everyone to play at home. Which means that we are likely going to be able to have a playable demo on the 1st of September. But of course there's going to be a lot of news at Gamescom, so I will be covering all of that. Now me personally, I liked this trailer a lot, but I wish they revealed a few more things. For one, we did not see any new weapons in action. So far we've only been able to see the greatsword and a heavy bowgun, with some very minor glimpses of the longsword and the hammer for just a couple of frames. And me personally, I was really hoping we would get to see how they would work out, with a similar level of focus that the Greatsword and the Heavy Bowgun have both had in these two trailers. I'm also just really itching to see some raw gameplay of the game, because we have not seen not even 30 seconds of uninterrupted gameplay, we haven't seen a single HUD element or anything, and I am just dying to see all of that. Let me know how you guys feel about the two new monsters and what else would you like to see from this. Again, I cannot wait for Monster Hunter Wilds, and I will be sure to keep you guys updated on everything, as this is by far the game I've been the most excited for in years. I do also want to thank everyone that showed up to the live stream. It was a lot of fun, we had a ton of people watching, and I will be doing these much more often, both here on YouTube and twitch.tv/DarkHeroCC. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Dark Hero, and as always, happy hunting.